All right. Well, good evening. It's an absolute pleasure, and really, I'm honored and humbled to speak to you about leading a team through a high stress situation. And um, you, let me just say this: that it wasn't just the city of Orlando and the Orlando Police Department that responded to this incident. It was a lot of you in this room, and we certainly couldn't have done it alone. So, in the aftermath, which I'll talk about, we leaned on a lot of nonprofits, and you don't have to be a police chief to have a high stress situation uh, or leadership challenges. And pay attention to that picture because we're gonna end up coming back to that and take a look at what you see. This is a very important picture. So these are some of the things I'm going to talk about. Bob covered a lot of these: collaboration, relationships, building your team, all things that you may do in your own groups. Very important. We could not have responded the way we did if we were not prepared, if we didn't train, if we didn't have the equipment. So that picture is from 5 years ago. Since Columbine, since 9/11, we, much like police departments from across the nation, have been training for mass shooting type scenarios. Unfortunately, that is the world we live in. So I felt very good as a leader because of our training, because of our experience, because of our knowledge, because of the things we had done to prepare ourselves. And let me just say that, when people talk about that incident on June 12th, and you'll hear it in the news, some pundits, they try to compare it to other situations. And we, especially we in this room, know it's like no other situation that's ever happened in the world. It's unique. So next time you see Mayor Buddy Dyer, next time you see your city commissioners, you need to give them a hug and give them a handshake, because this is called the Lenco Bearcat Armored Vehicle. It's a very expensive piece of equipment. And of course, to buy something like this, we have to get approval through our city council. And we actually got approval for this in October of 2015, before that dreadful day. And that was at a time, if you remember, all across the nation, because of Ferguson, because of Baltimore, because of New York, and different riots that we had had across the country, there was a lot of talk about the militarization of police, and let's try and demilitarize our police departments. And this equipment is not needed. And it's an armored vehicle that is merely designed to keep the people inside from being shot, so that officers can respond to hostage situations, so they could save other officers. So many times, and in some instances, it hasn't been used correctly throughout the nation, which has caused some groups to say, hey, we don't need this. Our officers are turning into this warrior mentality. They should be guardians, which is all true. But when that night happens, when that incident happens, this is the equipment we need. And our mayor and our city council, which they place public safety at the highest priority, without hesitation, despite all the media inquiries and some groups saying you don't need this, they approved this equipment without hesitation, and all of them said, you know what, give our police officers the equipment they need. And little did they know that this piece of equipment would save dozens of lives. So Bob talked about it before, building your team, relationships. Obviously, the Orlando Police Department could not have done that by ourselves. We had built, myself, for my team, I had built those relationships with my commanders, with officers for 26 years. So I can pick up the phone anytime and have that trust, and they know how I think, I know how they think, and that goes beyond just within my team. It goes outside my team, to Sheriff Demings, to the special agent in charge of the FBI. All those relationships had been built years before. So when this incident happened, I didn't have to look through a phone book or go on the internet and find out who's this person. I had all those people on my phone. All those people I had been talking since, even before I was appointed chief. I said, I need your help. And they said, I'm already on the way, John. So that's very, very important. So let me tell you about where I was at about 2:30 in the morning when I got that phone call. Usually, as the chief of police, I do get woken up in the night, in the middle of the night, many, many times. And this night was different because I got a text message, and I don't know how it woke me up. Usually, they call my phone and they say, and usually it's the midnight shift lieutenant, it's a watch commander, the highest ranking officer on the street on midnight shift, and they said, Chief. They usually say, Chief, sorry to bother you. We have a homicide. We have an officer involved shooting. We have an officer hurt. And those are usually the things I get woken up for. So that night I get a text message from one of my deputy chiefs, very, very rare, and he says, do you know what's happening? So I knew something was wrong because that's not the way the notification process works. So I picked up the phone, and he says, hey, we have a shooting at a nightclub on Orange Avenue, many victims, and a hostage situation. And remember, the night before, we just had the shooting with Christina Grimmie in a nightclub. So I'm half asleep, and I'm thinking to myself, well, this is probably not real. It's probably one of those swatting incidents where people make those fake phone calls, and they say, hey, there's a big hostage situation, there's a shooting, and they want to see the big police response. Well, I'd asked him that, and he goes, no, we have officers inside. We have multiple victims, and there's a hostage situation. So I immediately, got dressed right away. It's funny, Andre talked about I'm not in uniform. My officers always see me in uniform. I always have a uniform ready to go, and I'll talk about that a little later and why that's important. So I grabbed that uniform, and not only did I grab that uniform, I grabbed another uniform because I knew, based on the magnitude of what had just happened, that I wasn't going to be home for a long time. So I go to the scene and immediately get briefed by all the commanders at the scene, and they tell me basically what all of you know right now, that a little after 2 o'clock in the morning, this killer had gone into the nightclub, had started shooting. A police officer who was there at the scene exchanged gunfire with him. Other officers responded. Within minutes, went inside the club, exchanged gunfire with the suspect again, and he had pulled up or been contained in a back bathroom. We weren't exactly sure where he was, but after those first few minutes, there were no more shots fired until the very end of the night, and I'll talk about that. So what we had was a hostage situation, and I'll talk about some of the critical decisions we made early in the morning hours. So, and I'm kind of going to bounce around a bit, but and Andre talked about that, one of those first press conferences at 9:30 in the morning. And it was very important to us, very important to me, to the mayors, to the sheriff, that we get the message out. And this is what we wanted to do. It's very simple thing. Keep it simple. We wanted to tell people three things: what happened, how we responded, and what we were going to do moving forward with the investigation, and to keep people safe. That's it. That's all we wanted to say at that first press conference. And it was very, I give Michelle Guido's here. She's our media relations folks. She worked tirelessly that entire week. Everything was very choreographed as to what we said, how we said it, who spoke, what order we spoke in, because we wanted our community to feel safe. Like I said, we wanted to know what happened, how we responded, how we were going to keep everyone safe. So I'll go back to this first picture here. So that's the first picture that was taken of us as we were going to that bank of cameras from all over the world, and national news, international news. And you see me, and the mayor too, he's a pro, looking straight ahead. So why was I doing that? Because I'd done that walk before. I'd seen other chiefs do that walk before. And what I did not want to do was walk there with my head down. Yes, it was a tragic and horrific situation, but I wanted to display confidence and control in that picture. That's what that was all about. I told myself before I ever left that command post, I'm going to walk straight ahead and I'm going to look straight at the cameras. I'm not going to put my head down. I'm not going to wipe my brow if I don't have to. It's all about being in command and control, showing leadership for a community that needed to see leadership at that time. So again, I talked about, and you'll see, and I've been a police officer for 26 years, been the chief of police for 3 years now, and got a lot of compliments from chiefs around the country. And again, um, yeah, I was in my full uniform. It was a press uniform because I wanted to show again control, leadership, and I didn't want to show up wearing a polo shirt that was wrinkled, and people are like, who is this guy and what are these buffoons doing? When they saw us, they knew we were professional. They knew we were experienced, and we were in control, and we were going to let everyone know that things were going to be okay. This was a very horrific situation, but we're here to keep people safe. And one of the things I reiterated over time and time again is that those officers ran into that nightclub, and they didn't care what color the people were. They didn't care what race, sexual orientation, gender. They just went into that club hearing gunshots at risk of their own lives, and that we would do it again in a second to save the lives in this community. So I'll talk about that critical decision, toughest decision that I have ever had to make in my life. So we have a hostage situation. Actually, we had an active shooter situation. The shooting stopped. We contained the suspect. It turned into a hostage situation. He was barricaded gunmen, and one of the most, and tacticians and tactical people, police officers, chiefs will tell you, one of the most dangerous things that a police officer would ever do is a hostage rescue situation, because the danger to the victims, to the hostage side. So we were very, very careful about those decisions, not to rush in there and put more lives at risk unless we absolutely had to, unless the shooting had started again. And there were officers within feet of that suspect, within feet of that bathroom, ready to go in at any moment should the shooting have started again. And those officers, and we had indication that there may be explosives, and those officers did not leave the inside of that club, again, at risk of their own lives. Many of them told me afterwards they thought they were going to die that night. So that all changed when people from within inside, the brave people from inside, giving us those text messages and phone calls, told us that he was getting ready to put on some bomb vests and to 4 people and put them in the corners of the club in 15 minutes. So that changed everything. We decided, what, we're not going to just sit here and let him blow up this club and kill dozens of more people. We have to act now. So again, very critical decision, very dangerous decision to basically blow a hole through a concrete wall in an effort to save lives. And we knew it would be dangerous, and we knew there would be a chance of officers getting hurt, and more importantly, the hostages getting hurt. Because this is what we signed up for, to risk our lives for all of you. And they did that. The explosive breach only partially worked. They had to use that Bearcat armored vehicle to knock holes in the west wall, as many of you know, and dozens and dozens of people were saved that night because of the quick thinking, the leadership, and not only my leadership, the leadership by the ground commanders, the ones who were right there when they saw that explosive breach go off. It didn't work, only partially worked. So that right away they're like, hit it again with that armored vehicle, hit it again, until we could hear the people inside. And one by one we were able to come out, and the rest. The suspect came out and shot at one of our officers, hit that armored Bearcat numerous times with multiple rounds, and we shot back, killing the suspect. Just a very, very critical decisions made, and I got to brag about Central Florida law enforcement. What a great job! These officers, they didn't wait for all the ambulances, the fire department. The ambulances were overwhelmed. They just started putting people in their car, and they knew the great people at our hospitals, which were right down the road, would take care of them. So they just started throwing people into the back of pickup trucks, and they officers with only 4 or 5 years on, just took that leadership role and just started throwing people in the back of a pickup truck in order to save those lives. They didn't have to be told what to do; they just did it. And I want to talk about preparing future leaders because eventually, I don't know when, but eventually I'll be gone. So I do a lot, and then all of you should do the same thing to continue to prepare our future leaders. I can't keep all that information and all those decisions to myself. That's why I rely heavily on my staff. I let them make those decisions. I let them make those mistakes. So one day, just like the chief before me, Paul Rooney, he put me in all those leadership roles, and I give him a lot of credit because I would ask him, it's like he's like, you're ready to do this, you can do this, and he forced me, it really throughout my career to do these things, to lead, to put myself in uncomfortable positions, and I'll be forever thankful. And talking about leaders and heroes, that's the west wall, that's the dressing room. There were 8 people inside of that dressing room, and just real quickly, I'll tell this story because some of you have heard it, but it's so very, very interesting. And as our SWAT officers were preparing for their breach, getting the layout, saving people that were hiding in other bathrooms and other dressing rooms inside the club, we were walking with one of the employees around the back, and the employee manager was on the cell phone. The SWAT officer was like, come with me, get off that phone, tell me, what's that wall right there? What's that right there? And he's like on the phone. He's like, who could you possibly be talking to? It's more important than this right now. And he's, I'm talking to my employee. He's inside. He's like, what? Give me that phone. So the SWAT officer, again, just an officer, a leader, takes that phone and he says, where are you? He's, we're in the dressing room. There's 8 of us. And he says, well, describe it to me. And one of the things he describes is a wall with a mounted air conditioning unit on the outside. So the SWAT officers go up there, and they very carefully push on that. They tap on that, and the people inside tap back. They said, yes, that's us. So they said, be very quiet. The killer is right next door to you. Can't make a sound. So they, between the 2 of them, the people inside and the officer, they formulated a plan. Real quickly, we're going to push this air conditioner through. You guys are going to catch it, and you can't make a sound. So they did. They pushed that through, and you can see where they stepped on the sink to crawl out of there. So 8 people crawled out to safety, and the one person that was on the phone that our SWAT officer was talking to and says, before they came in, he says, one more thing. He goes, you have to be the last one out. He said, what do you mean I'm the last one out? And he says, yeah, so I know that you're all out. I'm going to stay with you on the phone the entire time. And that guy stepped up, and he said, okay, I will. And they all came out. So just leadership from outside and leadership from within. One of the things, I have been given a lot of credit just for the circumstances I've been put in, but I give my credit to the team, the men and women who were actually inside the arena. This officer, Mike Napolitano, came within an inch of his life. 1 inch lower, he'd have been shot right between the eyes, and that Kevlar helmet saved his life. So that's a very interesting example. I mean, something that doesn't happen every day, but give credit to your team members. Give them the credit. Admit mistakes to your team. And there's Mike Napolitano, seconds after being shot, being given aid to the other officers. And here's one of the mistakes that I made, because of course I'm not perfect. So after this incident, usually during our officer-involved shooting incidents, I go meet with the officers, and I tell them a lot of things. But one of the things I tell them is go home and tell your family and friends, because in about 24 hours you're going to be on the news. And the reason we do that is just to be open and transparent. And usually we give their names to the news the next day. We say, it's Officer Smith. He's got 7 years on. He doesn't have a disciplinary. And really the story just kind of dies. The guy had a gun. He shot at us. And so we find that, if we hold those names back, people are like, well, why won't they release the names? So we always give the officers' names. So I kind of followed my same philosophy in this case. My mistake was, we have is there any media people here? Our local media they're trained very well. And they really work with us. They don't bother our officers. The national media, the international media, they harassed our officers, knocked on their doors, called their phones, stalked them on social media, went to their houses, called their grandmother in Canada, they just wanted to get that extra information. So hindsight 2020, I never would have released her name. I would have waited till all the national media left, all the international media left. Just CNN had 122 reporters on the ground here in Orlando. So, but this is one of the things I told the entire department. I said, that was my fault. I'm the one who released those names, and I am sorry, and I'll never do it again. Bob talked about collaboration before, and this just doesn't go for the law enforcement agencies. This goes for everyone. As a community, we worked on this together. Everyone worked on this. There's no way the city of Orlando, the Orlando Police Department could have handled this itself. 27 different law enforcement agencies responded that night. Many nonprofits helped in the weeks afterwards, and some are still helping. So it's great to have that collaboration and to continue that. And then, talking about leading a team through high-stress situations, it doesn't end right away. I remember having that feeling of, okay, people have been saved, the suspect is dead. I remember, resting for just a second, and then it hit me. It dawned on me. I'm like, we're far from done here. There's the bulk of the work is still yet to come, and as all of you know, that's what happened. We had all these vigils. Everyone wanted to have a vigil, and we understand that. And so, what people want to feel safe at these vigils. So we deployed many, many resources. Some that you saw, some that you never saw. Officers on rooftops with sniper rifles, officers in plain clothes, all in an effort to keep people safe through all these vigils. And there were many, many of them, vigils, services, and different things that we had to do. And then every dignitary you can imagine wanted to come here and pay their respect. So that comes with a lot of resources. A lot of people are needed for a president, a vice president at the same time to come. So, I got to thank my friend Jerry Demings. He picked up the phone and called all his other sheriff buddies, and we had as many resources as we needed to handle all of these things. And I'll say it again, there's no way that we could have done this by ourselves. So that's why it's important to ask for help. Ask for help when you need it. And I think that ends my time. I think I went real over. So. Thank you. Definitely not necessary, but thank you very much.
I want to get just a couple of thoughts or questions for the chief. Who has a question they want to ask?
Chief Mina, obviously June 12th is coming up again, and there are a lot of events planned for nonprofits to support the whole Pulse tragedy and the families of the victims. What kind of strategy are you implying? The same type of plans as far as protection for the city going forward with the anniversary?
Absolutely. Great question, because there are a lot of things planned. And the ones planned that we know about, we have done a very good job of putting together operational plans, resources, staffing, and the good thing about one of the many great things about the Orlando Police Department, the City of Orlando, is we're used to big events. We've hosted WWE and the Pro Bowl and many, many bowls and all kinds. So we're used to those big events. We have the fireworks at the fountain every year with tens of thousands of people. But there will be much added security to, again, just like you saw, to keep people safe. And the only thing that we do ask is if there are events that are happening and you have not contacted the police department to let us know about that. And some may be small, may not require a lot of resources, but we need to know about that so we can keep people safe. And I have no doubt that between the Orlando Police Department, the Orange County Sheriff's Office, and all the surrounding agencies, we're going to continue to keep people safe. So rest assured, we got it.
Two more.
Hi, Chief Mina.
Hi.
I'm with the UCF PIO team, so thank you so much. Could you just speak really briefly about the training? So we've heard a lot about the leadership, but the training part of it that we have to go through, the FEMA training. Could you talk a little bit about that as the foundation for, in these situations, having that kind of reflex?
Absolutely. So years before this happened, not only the Orlando Police Department, but the Orange County Sheriff's Office, the FBI, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, many of our surrounding agencies, the hospitals, the doctors, fire, EMS, we had these multi-jurisdictional, huge joint training exercise. We've done them at Universal. We've done them at the mall at Millennia. And you don't know about us. We go there at 10 o'clock at night or 11 o'clock at night when it's shut down, and we practice, we train at many of these venues when they're closed. So we've been doing this for years, and we set up just like this with the command post. Everyone's in there, so that prepares you. That gets you ready. So I was very confident. I was shocked this happened. I was saddened. I was horrified, but I knew that we had the resources to handle this situation. Question.
Chief Mina, I admire all your preparation for something that you hope never happens. One thing that I was really impressed with, there's just such an outpouring of support in our community. So many people trying to give blood, and that. Even beyond that, I was really impressed by those that went out and started providing water and food for those that were trying to give blood. Can you highlight a couple of things that surprised you, even with all the preparation? Maybe one thing positive, one thing negative that really caught you off guard.
I'm glad you brought that up, Michael, because like I said, we could not have done it without the love and support from this community. We were overwhelmed by the amount of support. Quite frankly, I don't think we were ready for it. There were so many different restaurants, organizations, people that wanted to help with food for survivors, help with food for first responders. We ended up turning some people away or sending, take it to the police department. And my mom called me. Okay, I'm in the middle of this. She saw that I'm in the middle of press conferences, getting things.
You got to take your mom's call.
My mom called me and said, John, I have I work. She works at Lowe's. She goes, they have a couple pallets of water. How do I get it to you? I'm like, Mom, I'm busy. No, I did. I said, okay. I said, Captain. I said, talk to my mom. Tell her how to get us some water. I was nice to my mom. I didn't yell at her. So.
Everybody stand up. Give him a round of applause again. Get on your feet.